He was just 8 years old, bright-eyed, curious, hopeful. But in May of 2013, Gabriel Fernandez died in a hospital bed, his tiny body shattered, bruised, and burned. This is the story of how a child begged for help and no one came. Gabriel Daniel Fernandez was born in California on February 20th, 2005 to Arnold Contreras and Pearl Fernandez. He was a beautiful little boy with a gentle spirit and a quiet voice that often whispered what others missed. For most of his early life, Gabriel lived with his relatives. Soon after his birth, he was placed in the care of his great-uncle, Michael Lemus Carranza, and Carranza's partner, David Martinez. In 2009, when Gabriel was 4 years old, he moved in with his grandparents due to his grandfather's disapproval of Michael and David's same-sex relationship. He remained there until September 2012. But in that year, Gabriel's life changed dramatically. Despite clear warnings from family members, despite documented red flags, Child Services handed Gabriel over to his biological mother, Pearl Fernandez, and her boyfriend, Izaro Eguerre. From that moment on, his life became a nightmare. What Gabriel endured in that house, most adults wouldn't survive. He was beaten, burned with cigarettes, burned with heated objects, shot with BB guns, starved, gagged and locked in a wooden cabinet. He was forced to eat cat litter, cat feces, spoiled food, and even his own vomit. Every day he was mocked, humiliated, and tortured. And the worst part? They laughed. Fernandez's siblings reported that his mother and stepfather would laugh during the abuse. Pearl and Izaro found pleasure in his pain. Beyond the physical torment, he was subjected to psychological abuse. They made him wear girls' clothes to school, called him gay, and beat him when he cried. Gabriel asked for help. He wrote a letter to his teacher that read, "Can you please call someone to help me?" She did, again and again and again, but nothing changed. On May 22, 2013, Izaro slammed Gabriel's head against the wall so hard he stopped breathing. He was beaten for not tidying his toys. He had a fractured skull, broken ribs, burned skin, baby pellets embedded in his lungs and groin. He was only 8. When paramedics arrived, they were horrified. They found Gabriel naked and covered in bruises. He had been unconscious for hours. He was declared brain dead the next day and taken off life support on May 24th. The autopsy concluded that his death resulted from blunt force trauma, aggravated by neglect and malnutrition. Pearl and Izaro were arrested. What followed was one of the most disturbing trials in California's history. Prosecutors revealed a timeline of calculated, cold-blooded torture. Izaro was found guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances, torture. He was sentenced to death. Izaro was born in 1980. He repeated 2 grades in school and ultimately dropped out, implying a possible learning disability. He was employed at Woodland Park Retirement Hotel for 3 years, working as a caregiver and driver. Suzanne Weisbarth, executive director of the retirement home and former boss of Izaro, described him in court as a kind and gentle person, noting that he would frequently change diapers for elderly residents. Staff affectionately nicknamed him Shaggy. Izaro met Pearl approximately 18 to 24 months before they took custody of Gabriel Fernandez. In October 2012, Izaro began working as a security guard for AVL Private Security at the Vallarta Market in Palmdale, California. Pearl Fernandez, who showed no remorse, took a plea deal to avoid the death penalty. She was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Pearl was born in 1983. During her childhood, her father was frequently incarcerated, and Pearl alleges her mother was abusive and neglectful. At the age of 9, Pearl began using meth and drinking alcohol, and at 11 she decided to run away from home. She dropped out of school in the 8th grade. As a teenager, Pearl reported experiencing further trauma, including an alleged attempted rape by her uncle and being held hostage and repeatedly raped by a group of men, leading to suicidal ideation. She had 4 children with Arnold Contreras, including Gabriel. She left Gabriel at the hospital 3 days after his birth, but regained custody of him in 2012. While Pearl claims that many of her romantic partners, including Izaro, were abusive, her aunt Elizabeth Carranza and her partner dispute this, alleging that Pearl herself was abusive and controlling towards her partners. Additionally, Pearl has pending charges against her aunt for threatening to stab her. Following Gabriel's death, Pearl reported abusing the opioid drugs oxycodone and narco. Pearl has been diagnosed with several mental health issues, including a depressive disorder, developmental disability, a possible personality disorder, and post-traumatic stress disorder. A cognitive ability test in 2011 revealed verbal comprehension skills at the level of a typical second-grade student. Clinical psychologist Deborah Moira, expert witness for the defense at the trial, stated that Pearl was virtually unable to use thoughts to guide her behavior and control her emotional reactions. Gabriel's murder wasn't hidden in the shadows. There were reports, there were bruises, there were calls for help. So why didn't anyone intervene? According to legal scholar Charlotte Hinckamp, there was sufficient evidence of child abuse, and it was surprising that the Department of Children and Family Services didn't remove Gabriel from the home. 4 social workers were charged with 2 different felonies: child abuse and falsifying public records. However, the child abuse charges were dropped in 2020 as justices in the 2nd District Court of Appeal ruled that failure to uphold their duties and failure to remove Gabriel from his abusers did not constitute criminal liability for child abuse. 9 sheriff's deputies were internally disciplined for not properly investigating the abuse allegations. But in 2020, a California court dismissed the charges. The reason? They didn't have a legal duty to control his parents. Let that sink in. Gabriel's death shook the world. The Netflix docuseries The Trials of Gabriel Fernandez captured the public's rage, exposing not only Pearl and Izaro's cruelty, but the indifference of the very system built to protect him. It wasn't just a failure, it was a betrayal of duty, of humanity, of an innocent child. As of 2025, Pearl Fernandez is rotting in a women's prison in Chowchilla, California. Izaro Aguirre sits on death row at California State Prison in Corcoran. His execution? Unlikely, as California's death penalty remains frozen. But justice feels unfinished, because no law, no sentence, no documentary can undo what was done to Gabriel. He was just 8. He wanted to be a police officer. He loved his teacher. He asked for help and trusted someone would come. No one did. Gabriel Fernandez died a victim of torture, but also of silence. May we remember his name, May we never forget his face, and may we never, ever look away again. Rest in peace, Gabriel. Please leave any theories or comments you might have for us down below. We're really interested to know what you think about this case.